Our next grammar rule is sentences, and we've already established that in order to have a complete sentence, we need both a subject and a matching verb. Well, this leaves room for a couple problems. One is if we're missing a subject or a verb, or maybe even both, and we call these fragments. You may be used to seeing really short bits of information as fragments, but on the test, they'll often try to trick you with really long pieces of information that happen to be fragments. Let's look at one of these. Ezra, a star student athlete at the local high school who is trying to get into a good college. Okay, this might sound like a sentence, but let's find our subject and verb just to make sure. So Ezra, subject, and a verb. Well, we don't actually have one. We have words that might act as a verb in a different sentence, but in this one, that verb is actually in a non-essential phrase, so it's not the matching verb for our sentence here. So this has to be a fragment. Ezra is our subject, but we're missing a verb, so we have a fragment. We just have a couple really long non-essential phrases that tell us a lot of information about Ezra, but we never get to an action or a linking verb that links Ezra to some information. The best way to fix this one is probably just to add a linking verb in. So we could remove that comma and just put an is here. Ezra is a star student athlete. That would link Ezra to this information and we fixed our fragment. So this is a very common pattern that we see on the test. We have a subject, then some non-essential information or some phrases, and then a period. It just ends the sentence, but we haven't actually gotten to the verb yet. So watch out for things like that. The other problem we can have is when we have too much information. So we have to have a subject and verb to have a complete sentence, but sometimes we have more than one subject-verb pair. And in this case, we have what we call a run-on. Okay, Mike is tall and he is nice. In this example, we have a subject and verb, right? Mike is. We have another subject and verb. He is. So we have more than one subject-verb pair, and when this happens, we need to make sure that these are separated correctly. In this case, they're not, so it's called a run-on. We can't just separate them with an and. That's not enough. There's three ways that we can separate two complete thoughts here, or fix a run-on. Let's look at those. The first way is to have a comma plus a conjunction. And remember, your conjunctions are words like and, but, or, for, that sort of thing. So we could actually fix this very easily by just adding a comma here, comma and. Okay, so that's one way. The second is a semicolon. So we could get rid of this and, as well as the comma, and just put a semicolon here. And that would do the trick as well. The third option is a period, new sentence. Okay, so again, we can get rid of the semicolon, we can just end this first sentence, and then start a new sentence. That works. So any of these three options will work to fix a run-on or to separate two complete thoughts. The test will never ask you to pick between these three options, so don't worry about that. You just need to know if it is a run-on and how you might fix that using one of these three options. Okay, so again, your job on the test is to find the subject of your sentence, find the verb, keep reading, always keep reading, find any additional subjects and verbs, and determine if you have a fragment, a run-on, or a complete sentence. Now let's take a look at one additional practice question. He slipped out the door and into the night, and no one has heard from him since. Okay, always find your subject verb, so let's do that first. Subject, verb, out the door and into the night, and no one, another subject, verb, has heard from him since. Okay, so we have two subject-verb pairs, so we need to separate these correctly. As it stands, we're not doing that correctly, so we have a run-on. We just have an and that's not one of our three options. The best way to fix this would be D, night, comma, and no one. So we can just add a comma there and we fix the problem here. Okay, now you're ready to take a look at the practice questions.